Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to the other match in this semi-final round of the public sector debate competition. I'm Aniki Clark, communication lead in the TIU and your host for this match. Now, if you're just joining us, you missed an amazing match, right? In that match, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining won the match and has advanced to the grand finale. Right? Let's give them, oh, they're not here, but we can clap them still. And this match will decide who plays the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining for the debating champion of the public sector. So this is a big match. And the National Irrigation Commission did a commendable job, and they will play off against the second place, Jermaine will tell me, of this match, no losers, for the third place in the grand finale. So for this match, we have the Judiciary of Jamaica going up against the Ministry of Tourism, and they will be debating the MOOT. Be it resolved that the Government of Jamaica should substantially prioritize investment in education over national security in an effort to reduce crime. That's a mouthful, so let me read it again. Be it resolved that the Government of Jamaica should substantially prioritize investment in education over national security in an effort to reduce crime. A big moot, right? Crime is a big thing. Education is a big thing. We just had PEP results. We just got crime stats, you know? So it's going to be another exciting match, I have absolutely no doubt. But before we get into the excitement, I will ask the teams to introduce themselves, starting with Team Proposition, the Judiciary of Jamaica.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacon Beckford, and I'm the first speaker for the proposition.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jaya Buchanan Kamosi, and I'm second speaker for the proposition.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sanique Richards, and I am the third speaker for Team Proposition.
Thank you so much, Team Proposition. Clap them. And we now invite Team Opposition, Ministry of Tourism, to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Davita Keane, and I am the third speaker for Team Opposition.
Good morning, everyone. Matthew Blake, second opposition speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shakina Morgan, first speaker.
Thank you so much, Team Opposition. And our adjudicators for today are no strangers, the Jamaican Association of Debates for Debating and Empowerment, JADE. Judges, please introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Aniki. And let me declare we're family by now. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jermaine Barrett, and I have the privilege to serve as the chair adjudicator of this match.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roshana Jarrett, and I'll be your wing adjudicator for this match.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The name is Javon Downey, and I'll be serving as a wing adjudicator in this match. I was just about to say chair.
No problem. Thank you so much, judges. So the teams are familiar with the rules. We've met them, and it's just left for me now to wish them both good luck. Right? And I will hand over to Jermaine to marshal the match.
Thank you again, Aniki Clark, the amazing moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for the second semifinals, and let me tell you, if the last match was anything to go by, we're in for a zinger. All right, so, a big deal, I'm told. All right. A big box. All right, we're in for something very good. All right? A vegetable salad, maybe, who knows? All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, so just to remind you, our viewers, in whom we're very pleased to have join us, that if you're here for the first time, welcome, and of course we have a little treat for you to kind of go through the rules as to how the competition will flow, the match rather. So the first debaters on either team will speak for 7 minutes, the second debaters speak for 6 minutes, and then the third debaters wrapping up the case for their respective team. They will present for 5 minutes. After the first two speakers, you will hear period of exciting cross-examination, and then of course you'll hear another cross-examination segment after the second speaker's presentation. You'll benefit from a 1-minute pause, and then we'll conclude with the 3rd-minute speeches. You just heard the ding of the bell. That is what we're going to use to signal the time signals. So after the speakers have presented for 1 minute, you will hear one ding of the bell. And when they have 1 minute to go, they will hear another ding of the bell. When they have consumed the allotted time, you'll hear 2 dings of the bell. And of course, when they're really out of time, that's allotted time coupled with 15 seconds, you'll hear continuous dinging of the bell. That signals that you should stop. I'm sure the teams are very much aware of that by now. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let us now invite enthusiastically the first speaker from the Judiciary of Jamaica.
Mr. Speaker, esteemed judges, honorable members of this House, good day. I rise with resolve to propose the MOOT, be it resolved that the Government of Jamaica should substantially prioritize investment in education over national security in an effort to reduce crime. As the first speaker for the proposition, I will outline the why. My second speaker will explain the how, and our third speaker will reinforce our case. But let us define key terms. Substantially prioritize investment in the context of this MOOT means to strategically increase public spending, policy focus, institutional development, and national attention on education as a leading tool of crime reduction. Education refers to the body of knowledge and skills acquired through formal schooling, vocational and workplace training, teacher development, civic education, remedial literacy, and psychological support delivered across various social institutions. Education, Mr. Speaker, is about transforming the mindset of our citizens. Jamaica is losing the fight against crime. In 2024, our murder rate was among the highest in the world, despite over approximately $100 billion spent on national security in the past 7 years. While security tightens, school crumbles, dropout rates rises, and vulnerable youth remain easy target for gangs. This is a social crisis, and the answer is not more force, it is education. Mr. Speaker, crime is not innate, it is cultivated. It grows in the soil of hopelessness, watered by poverty, pruned by neglect. Education is the tool that rewires that environment. A 2018 Inter-American Development Bank study found that each additional year of schooling reduces a youth's likelihood of committing a crime by up to 30%. The 2020 World Bank report confirms this. They say that education reduces poverty, inequality, and exclusion, all known indicators of criminal behavior.
Of information.
Not accepted at this time. Consider the hypothetical. Cassandra, a teenager from Tivoli Gardens who nearly dropped out of school in grade 8. But with a PATH-funded scholarship and a dedicated guidance counselor, she stayed the course. She passed 7 C-Sex subjects, not at this time, completed her training, and now she runs her own business. Her brother Andre, same home, no support. Dropped out in grade 7, now in prison for illegal possession of firearm. Siblings with different destinies. That is the power of education. Mr. Speaker, we admit, not at this time, national security is valuable, but it is too reactive. Education is preventative. It stops crime before it starts by equipping youth with job skills, teaching conflict resolution, and building self-worth and discipline. According to UNESCO in 2016, these are among the things that Finland, Norway, and Singapore did in prioritizing education over national security, and they enjoy the lowest crime rates globally. Mr. Speaker, across diverse data sets, regions with higher education level show markedly lower crime rates, suggesting a reliable inverse relationship. Investments, not at this time, in quality early childhood education correlate with a sustained decrease in crime rates. early educational intervention is necessary to meaningfully reduce crime. Whereas Jamaica, in relying on national security, it is a short-term solution. Look at Spanish Town. Following the killing of an alleged Don earlier this year, the government imposed states of emergencies, SOEs. But once the situation cooled, the security forces withdrew. Then, just this last week, the JCF released a statement reporting renewed violence in the area. Mr. Speaker, this proves our point. Without substantially prioritizing investment in education, crime pauses, not decline, and calls for a balanced approach have become a convenient excuse for inaction. We need to choose education because the evidence shows it has the greater long-term impact. When crime increases, the economy is affected and investors pull out, leading to unemployment, poverty, and brain drain, which only causes more crime. Crime, unemployment, drug abuse, and illiteracy cost Jamaica approximately $68 billion annually, according to the Gleaner in 2025. So by substantially prioritizing education, which tackles the root issues, we could save at least that amount each year. Education is the real solution. And Mr. Speaker, last year alone, 10,000 at-risk youths graduated from Hart and secured employment. Many others gained certifications, not at this time, that enabled entrepreneurship and mobility. These are people who did not turn to a life of crime because education gave them a path out of poverty and unemployment. This is a virtuous cycle. Educated communities gain income, stability, and opportunity, leading to reduced crime. Project STAR proves this. Crime fell by 54% in at-risk areas like Parade Gardens, Maypen West, and others in 2024, driven by the educational interventions that led to jobs and stability, not national security measures. The Norman Manley High School is a prime example. Simple educational interventions like guidance counseling, parent workshops, and home visits led to a noticeable drop in school violence. In 2013, the head of the guidance department confirmed real behavioral improvements. Mr. Speaker, national security has long been our priority, and yet crime remains alarmingly high. 41% of crime unresolved, 47% of crime undetected. Mr. Speaker, investing in education will also lead to us having educated security force workers, not just tactical training, but learning the laws and the legal requirements for investigations. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica is not a military state. And therefore, to truly reduce crime, we must substantially prioritize investment in education, the one tool that fights crime, poverty, inequality, and injustice together. The proposition pauses. Thank you.
We thank the first speaker from the proposition team for his remarks, and now call upon the first speaker from the opposition team, the Ministry of Tourism, to present their presentation. Hear, hear.
Honorable judges, worthy opponents, and esteemed members of the audience, good afternoon. Today we stand firmly in opposition to the MOOT. Be it resolved that the Government of Jamaica should substantially prioritize investment in education over national security in an effort to reduce crime. Mr. Speaker, let us be clear. The opposition is not against education. We fully recognize its value in building our nation's future. But this debate is about crime reduction. And if we are to be grounded in truth and guided by evidence, then the facts are clear. To swiftly and effectively reduce crime in Jamaica, we must substantially prioritize investment in national security over education. But before I go into my arguments, Mr. Speaker, I find it very judicious to rebut some of the claims made by the proposition's first speaker. The opposition agrees that crime must be reduced, but it rejects the proposition's call to shift substantial resources from national security to education. Our rebuttal is simple. This strategy undermines immediate crime-fighting capacity, delays justice, and weakens deterrence, and reduces public confidence. Education is not an effective substitute for law enforcement or an effective solution for crime reduction. Additionally, the proposition first speaker mentioned that better training for officers, that training is done under the Ministry of National Security and not under the Ministry of Education and Youth. As the first speaker, I will demonstrate why education alone cannot address violent crime or dismantle the external networks fueling it, and why workforce and infrastructure gaps in our security apparatus are the real crisis. Our second speaker will then advance two further arguments and introduce a clear, comprehensive policy framework to show just how an increased investment in national security will effectively and substantially reduce crime, as well as safeguard the fundamental rights of every single Jamaican. Our third speaker will then consolidate our case and dismantle the proposition's claim while reaffirming our winning position. Now let us begin this debate with the clarity the proposition refuses to offer. To substantially prioritize means to assign a significantly higher level of importance, urgency, or resource allocation to one area over another. National security is the capacity of the state to protect its people, institutions, borders, and economy from internal and external threats, military, political, criminal, or technological. Crime reduction means the deliberate strategies and actions designed to decrease crimes, incidents, and impact. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica is facing a national security emergency. In 2023, our homicide rate stood at 52 per 100,000, one of the highest in the world, with over 80% of those murders involved illegal firearms, even though Jamaica manufactures no guns. Mr. Speaker, here is Jamaica's hard crime truth. 43% of our violent crimes are committed by repeat offenders. More than 90% of our rape cases go unresolved despite ongoing civic education campaigns. And with over 70 mob killings occurring in 2022 alone, public confidence is shattered. Additionally, the rise in white-collar crimes proves that even the educated offend, Mr. Speaker. But there is hope. Where we invested, we saw results. From 2023 to 2025, national security spending rose from 2.1% to 3.5% of GDP, leading to a 21.4% drop in serious crime, while education stood at 5.6% of the GDP and has not proven to reduce violent crimes. Mr. Speaker, this is not theory, this is evidence. Jamaica's crime crisis demands the prioritization of an urgent, strategic, and well-funded approach to national security over the hypothesis that is an education-first approach. Mr. Speaker, the certainty of punishment has proven to better deter than education has. Violent crime in Jamaica is not driven by illiteracy. It is driven by guns, gangs, corruption, and international trafficking networks. Education may shape minds, Mr. Speaker, but it cannot fix what it cannot reach. According to the UE Crime Perception Survey in 2023, 65% of Jamaicans identify corruption, not illiteracy, as the main driver of violent crime. Additionally, a 2024 review by Lochner and Moretti confirmed that while education spending reduced property crime, it had no impact on violent crime such as murder. Mr. Speaker, the facts speak for themselves. When Jamaica increases national security spending, serious crime not accepted. Serious crime decreases and fundamental rights such as the right to life are safeguarded. Now, let's focus on the major external driver of our crime crisis. Jamaica is noted as a key node in the illicit trafficking of guns and narcotics between South and North America. Are we to extend the proposition's education-first solution to cartels as well, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, textbooks won't stop contraband, but strong borders will. In June 2025, local authorities seized 233 guns and 40,000 rounds of ammunition, the largest single seizure in our history. That success was made possible not by a civics education class, but by a $231 million investment in port scanners, drones, and radar supported by the U.S. State Department. Mr. Speaker, I continue this truth campaign with my second point. Our crime crisis isn't just a matter of untrained minds. It's a matter of understaffed forces and under-resourced system. As of 2025, the Jamaica Constabulary Force had a complement of 12,100 officers, far below the UN recommended minimum of 222 per 100,000 people. That is a shortfall of 4,000 officers. Additionally, in 2024, not accepted at this time, Jamaica Customs Agents reported that only 58% of their staffing needs were met, leaving critical ports vulnerable, Mr. Speaker. According to the Police Federation in 2023 alone, 520 police officers resigned or migrated, many to the UK or Canada, for better pay and conditions. Mr. Speaker, education cannot stop this brain drain or its consequences. And what are these consequences, they may ask? There are slower response times, more unresolved murders, and growing public fear. Even after the recent public sector salary reform, our officers' salaries still remain uncompetitive. To this point, the CARICOM Secretariat noted that as of 2024, Jamaican police officers still earned up to 10,000 US dollars less than their counterparts in Bahamas and Trinidad. Mr. Speaker, substantially investing in our national security and human capital will reduce crime. This is not a wish, Mr. Speaker, this is a fact. In 2023, El Salvador cut homicides by over 50% through investments in police pay and patrols, according to the World Bank. Additionally, the Caribbean Development Bank confirmed that a 10% increase in staffing reduces violent crime by up to 10% across the Caribbean. But the problem is not just human capital. Our national security framework has a critical infrastructure gap, a gap that has created a permissive environment for crime. However, our government has shown its commitment to addressing this gap. In June 2025, Jamaica opened a $680 million forensic autopsy suite, the first of its kind in the Caribbean. Mr. Speaker, this facility will help to clear backlogs, accelerate murder trials, and make sure criminals face faster justice. The lesson is simple. Education cannot arm, equip, or retain professionals. We need to secure Jamaica and reduce violent crimes. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica will continue to hemorrhage trained workers while emboldening criminal actors if we stick to education. I rest my case and move on to my second speaker.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that speech. Really, the debate is taking shape. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now move to the first segment of cross-examination. In this segment, the opposition team gets a chance to ask 3 questions posed to the proposition team, and then vice versa thereafter. All right, just be reminded, opposition, that each question that you ask is limited to 10 seconds, and the proposition, each response limited to 30 seconds. Team Ministry of Tourism, you may begin with your slate of 3 questions.
Team proposition, if countries such as Finland, who prioritize education, struggle to curb sexual violence, how can Jamaica expect education first or alone to protect 1 in 3 women who face such violence?
In truth, what we're saying is that once we educate our population, these crimes will decrease, because once people know that these things are wrong, then they will stop doing them. In fact, what we see is that in our country, what happens is that because people can't read and write, they don't understand our laws, they don't understand what they're doing is wrong, and nobody's teaching them. They drop out at grade 9 and grade 7, and they perpetuate what is happening in their communities. We want to reach them, and that is what education means. It's not about funding the Ministry of Education, it's about reaching the education in each ministry.
Thank you, but again, Finland is highly educated and still has high sexual violence, so how would education resolve that issue for Jamaica?
They have low crime rates and it's high sexual violence in a context where the crime rates are low. In Jamaica, a majority of our crime are violent crimes. And so if it is that we educate our population and change mindsets, we will reduce violent crimes and allow victims of sexual assault and abuse to come forward, because most of those crimes are undetected. If we detect them, we can stop them.
Thank you. How does an education-first policy protect our sovereignty if war is to come to our shores?
Because we would have educated soldiers, educated police officers, educated security personnel who are able to be tactical, be strategic, to protect our borders. We're focusing solely on guns and militia instead of focusing on educating these people to ensure that when this war comes to our borders, they are able to be tactical and to outsmart our opposition.
Thank you very much, Team Opposition, for your questions. Thanks, Proposition, for your responses. Team Proposition, it's now your turn to ask your questions of the opposition team.
If crime is primarily driven by socioeconomic conditions like poverty and lack of opportunity, how does militarizing or policing solve the root cause of crime?
We're not militarizing our police. We're ensuring that we meet even just the minimum. And again, educated persons without morals or enforcement has been proven to be a problem in Jamaica and will lead to just more educated criminals.
How do you justify spending billions on security forces when schools in inner city areas still lack basic infrastructure like functioning toilets or qualified teachers?
Well, right now, education spending is almost double that of national security. And again, this is for a crime reduction plan, not to fix the problems across the education sector on their own.
If a child is born into a violent community, what can national security do to prevent them from turning to crime compared to what a good school or mentorship program might achieve?
Well, what it achieves is that the child born in a violent community can actually get to school because police are in the communities versus them going to the school and being shot on the way without the police.
All right, quite a response. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank both teams for a spirited exchange of questions and answers. We continue our debate now with the contribution from the second speaker from Team Proposition. That's the Judiciary of Jamaica. Let's make that speaker welcome.
Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, my worthy opponents, and the audience, good afternoon. The opposition has confused education to only mean funding the Ministry of Education. But what the proposition wants us to realize is that funding the Ministry of Education does not fund all education in the country. Education is within each ministry and is inclusive of training and development of staff. The task before us today is not to repeat the mistakes of the past, but to boldly reshape the future. My first speaker has laid the foundation as to why we must act. I will now show you how strategic investment in education beyond mere policy is Jamaica's most powerful tool to sustainable crime reduction. Mr. Speaker, investing in foundational and inclusive education directly reduces future criminality. As Popcorn said, number don't lie, and the numbers as highlighted by Senator Damian Crawford in the Gleaner this month are damning. Nearly 13,000 students failed mathematics, and over 11,000 fell short in English language in our recent PEP exams. Even worse, Jamaica's CSEC pass rates have dropped from 25.6% in 2015 to 18% today. Dunce, Mr. Speaker, is no longer a trend. It's a national emergency. A local study shows that over 30% of Jamaican youth are not in school, training, or employment, making them prime recruits for the 323 gangs in Jamaica. They're not dropping out by choice, Mr. Speaker, because our education system is failing from within, plagued by overcrowded classrooms, teacher shortages, and chronic underfunding. Most schools have over 35 students per teacher, despite evidence like Project STAR in the US that show that smaller classes improve performance, behavior, and reduce crime.
Point of information.
Not accepted. Beyond the numbers, the system lacks resources to diagnose and support children with ADHD, autism, and other learning needs. Without early intervention, many are lost between grades 7 and 9 when they are most at risk to be drawn into crime. That's why we must invest in proven, homegrown programs like Jamaica Home Visit Program, which cuts serious violent behavior by 67%, and initiatives for students with special education needs. But to scale them, we need more schools, classrooms, trained teachers. We propose 2 targeted funding solutions: a 2% education tax increase for 10 years to build new schools, and a 15% reallocation of the national security budget. 5 for special education, 5 for teacher recruitment and training. This would not be harmful because in 2024 and 2025, the national security budget was slashed by approximately 7%, and there was noticeable reduction in crime. Not accepted. Mr. Speaker, re-education isn't just it's just a response to idleness and crime. It is the solution. Ministry of Education data shows that thousands leave high school each year without 5 CSEC subjects needed for higher education or stable employment. With only 18% passing math and English, many are left unemployable and vulnerable to crime. To address this, we propose the REDEEM project, a national re-engagement and skill remediation strategy funded by the remaining 5% reallocation of the national security budget. How does it work? First, students not entering university or vocational training will be placed in mandatory job programs through public-private partnerships, offering paid, hands-on experience in critical and emerging sectors. Not accepted. Second, those who don't qualify will enter a technical 6th form program modeled on MICOS. Year 1 focuses on academic remediation, Year 2 on technical skills aligned with national labor demands. Aspiring teachers will be streamlined into training to help ease the educator shortage. Third, we introduce a voluntary 2-year youth development program with the JCF and military based on Singapore's national service model to instill discipline, civic responsible and employable skills, and this might help curb your understaffed police and militia. We are offering an opportunity to our youth to redeem themselves and live lives in an effort to reduce crime. National security must also mean more than boots and bullets. It must also mean books and brains. The JCF is evolving. Many officers now hold degrees, and the National Police College is internationally accredited. Why does this matter? educated officers are better at preventing crime, de-escalating violence, and gaining public trust. Studies from the US show that college-educated officers are 41% less likely to use lethal force, and that procedural justice training reduces crime by up to 14% in targeted areas. Education also prepares officers for civilian life, lowering unemployment and vulnerability after service. And let's be clear, training officers is not the same as buying weapons. If education makes our security forces more effective, then that is a smarter, more sustainable investment. This investment, not accepted. This investment goes beyond the police. It must extend across all tiers of education, especially technical fields that uphold justice and security. The TIU's RUN program has shown success in reskilling public servants. It's time to scale it nationally. By partnering with HEART tuition-free programs, we can train vital specialists, lab technicians, cybercrime analysts, forensic photographers, roles essential to modern crime fighting. The urgency is clear. Jamaica's new pathology lab is understaffed. MOH struggles to recruit technical personnel. This is a direct result of brain drain. Institutions like the JTI and mine must be empowered to train transcriptionists, forensic assistants, criminal data analysts. Delayed justice erodes public trust and emboldens criminality. We need educated people, Mr. Speaker, to fight crime. How do we fund this? By repurposing unused seized firearms valued at over $850,000 US, raising firearm import tariffs to deter inflow and generate revenue, and by reinvesting proceeds of crime into education and social services because it is permitted by our legislation. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the school-to-prison pipeline is real. We cannot continue to build prisons while our classrooms decay. Every dollar spent on education saves us 10 in criminal justice costs. We're not dismissing national security. We're insisting education must lead it. If we invest in our people today, we will lay the groundwork for a safer, more prosperous Jamaica within a decade. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have no choice but to propose this MOOT.
We thank the second proposition speaker for her contributions. And we now call upon the second opposition speaker to do likewise. Hear, hear.
Esteemed adjudicators, my colleagues on the opposition, worthy opponents and audience members, good afternoon. We on this side of the House agree that Jamaica must reduce crime. Let's start with the common ground. But unlike the proposition, we understand that in a country under siege by violence, gang warfare, and organized criminal enterprise, the path to peace is not paved with textbooks alone. Today, I rise to deliver two additional arguments and to present our policy proposal grounded in the urgency of our lived reality. But, Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I must be diligent in addressing some of the proposition's claims. The proposition is confusing the debate today. We're here to talk about crime reduction, not the general shortcomings of the education system. How will what you're proposing address crime? We're not seeing that. We're hearing ideas about what they think will work, 2% increase in education tax and their Redeem project. But what we're not hearing is the quiet part out loud, that they want to defund the police and reallocate that money to these initiatives with a hope that might reduce crime. But the opposition today is situating our argument in reality, not wonderland. And in the Jamaica where we live, it is substantial investments in national security that have statistically shown to achieve any meaningful and lasting reduction in crime. And the proposition has woefully shirked its burden, proving otherwise today. Dare I go further and say, if we should accept what they're proposing, we would risk losing the gains we have made in fighting crime, and we cannot afford that. Not accepted. Mr. Speaker, my first argument is that education without enforcement creates educated criminals. Proposition, let us not romanticize education. Knowledge without moral grounding or legal consequence does not prevent crime, it perfects it. In 2023, the Financial Investigations Division uncovered over $2.5 billion in white-collar fraud. These were not illiterate criminals. These were educated professionals abusing their expertise to exploit institutions and siphon millions from our economy. Proposition, that's your banker, your attorney, your neighbor with a master's degree, stealing not out of ignorance, but opportunity. Just look at SSL, billions gone, including Usain Bolt's life savings. That wasn't just a robbery. It was an education-enabled heist. And these criminals especially, Mr. Speaker, know about the pay that comes from crime. And that's why national security is responsible for reducing that benefit that comes from crime. And these crimes are not victimless, Mr. Speaker, as the Global Organized Index links financial fraud to organized gangs, gun trafficking, cybercrime, making fraud the silent partner in street violence. Not accepted. But there is more, Mr. Speaker. We live in a Jamaica where links run things, let's be honest. And there's a church on every corner. Yet the educated and the religious are common actors in everyday criminality. And the National Integrity Action in a 2023 report agrees. Whether it's buying a license or electricity theft, deviance has become normalized. A 2023 JPS report revealed that over 90% of this theft come from middle and upper income communities. That's the respectable citizen who preaches lawfulness on a Sunday and calls a friend to fix things on Monday. Mr. Speaker, how does education swiftly address these complexities? National security, on the other hand, along with enforcement, educates with precision and prevents crime. Mr. Speaker, programs like the police youth clubs and the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force instill civic responsibility, discipline, and leadership in at-risk youth. And these targeted programs work, as the Ministry of National Security in 2024 reported that youth involved in these initiatives are 38% less likely to engage in crime. And they mentioned that under their Redeem project, but it already exists. Mr. Speaker, enforcement must be the backbone of education. Stripping funds from national security will not reduce crime, but it could refine it. Because an educated criminal is not less dangerous, he's more efficient. In light of this, Mr. Speaker, rather than forcing a trade-off, we propose or plan Operation Safe Haven, which is a national initiative aimed at bolstering Jamaica's national security framework to reduce and prevent crime while building community resilience effectively and swiftly. The program is built on 7 pillars: targeted intelligence-led policing, which will expand Zozo-style zones using gang mapping, analytics, and predictive deployment as needed. 2, border and customs control to boost Coast Guard and cyber forensics capacity and enhance cooperation with CARICOM, Mexico, and the US. 3, rural and urban safety grants, which invest in local initiatives like youth clubs, lighting, farming, and entrepreneurship to improve safety and opportunity. 4, security workforce and infrastructure expansion, which will include the hiring of 3,500 new officers, upgrade to 20 police stations, and increase in salaries and incentives for members of the security forces. And in the interest of time, Mr. Speaker, I won't expand on the other 3, but they're financial, digital crimes, community rehabilitation, and school protection and intervention teams. The plan will raise the national security budget by Jamaican $24.5 billion, which is approximately 0.9% of GDP. And it will be funded through procurement savings, phased spending, shared patrols, and asset seizures under the Proceeds of Crime Act. And this is substantial, Mr. Speaker, but it's necessary. We'll also establish a National Safe Communities Fund, which will use the surplus from seized criminal assets to reinvest in communities and partner with regional partners like CARICOM, Impacts, offer tax incentives, and launch public safety bonds. By year 3, we expect a 40% drop in gang-related murders, 50% increase in cross-border guns and drug seizures, and 10,000 youth positively engaged. Mr. Speaker, I close with my last argument, that you cannot educate in crime and chaos. Education cannot thrive where schools are forced to close due to gang warfare. And in January 2024, we saw it, where the gang flare-ups in Spanish Town shut down 4 major schools, disrupting over 3,000 students. And UNICEF confirms that school closures like these lead to plummeting literacy scores and rising dropout rates. And yet, where security leads, education follows. In communities like Denham Town, Zozos first reduced crime, then allowed social investment to take root, safeguarding not just the rights to life and freedom of movement, but the right to access education as well. Proposition, even if we accept your solution, what keeps the peace while education takes decades, as you say, trying to fix a problem it cannot reach? We on this side of the House stand for security that creates a space for learning, for enforcement that protects our youth, and for a Jamaica where education and safety march hand in hand, not one behind the other. The opposition pauses.
We thank the second opposition speaker for his excellent contribution. We now go to the second segment of cross-examination. And of course, the rules remain the same as they were with the first segment. So without any further delay, I now invite the opposition team, that's the Ministry of Tourism, to pose their questions to the Judiciary of Jamaica.
Team proposition, how does an education-first approach account for an immediate and significant fall in visitor safety or the perception of safety and loss in revenue for the country?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How does an education-first approach account for an immediate and significant fall in visitor safety or the perception of safety and loss in the revenue for the country?
That is why we're saying that education also includes training of our security personnel to ensure that they can attack comprehensive crime. So that would be the immediacy, because we have admitted that education is for long-term reduction. We're not focusing on the short-term solutions because those as an SOEs have failed. So in educating and pushing education for security personnel, they will be better able to resolve those crimes and address them.
Do you understand the risk of moving the training of national security personnel from the Ministry of National Security and how that can negatively impact national security for our country?
We're not proposing to move it from the Ministry of National Security. What we're saying is that the budget for education includes training and education for members of the security force. We want an educated population from our teachers, our youths, and our security personnel.
Okay, you stated that education reduced crime. Can you identify a single country with a violent crime rate similar to Jamaica that successfully reduced crime without first investing in security and enforcement?
No, but Finland, Singapore, Norway, they historically had, especially Singapore, high crime rates. And what they did was invest in education. It has been shown in studies, and that has reduced crime in their country.
All right, thank you very much for that segment of cross-examination, well, the phase of questions and answers. We continue now with the second set of questions and answers. This time the questions coming from the Judiciary of Jamaica.
Based on your reasoning, would you prefer that we halt education while you take another 3 to 4 decades to combat national security and make the pathways and roads to school safe?
No, we're saying education must continue, but it should not continue by cutting down our security forces because, again, how will our students get to school through gunshots?
Your second speaker criticized education for addressing financial crimes, but how do you account for the fact that MOCA is significantly invested in and yet financial crimes remain on the high?
Financial crimes in Jamaica are high because even though MOCA is invested in, there is still gaps, like my first speaker stated, and those gaps need to be corrected. Weak enforcement is the problem.
Can you provide empirical evidence where increased national security spending alone has led to long-term decline in crime without corresponding educational or social investments?
Again, we're not saying education is not important, but security must lead the charge. We offer you the example of El Salvador, and even in countries that invest in education first, they are now increasing their national security spending, and one such example is Sweden, which again saw a rise in violent sexual crimes.
All right. And with that, we've come to the second, the close of the second segment of cross-examination. A round of applause, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now pause, reflect on the exchanges that have just been exhibited. And then at the end of the 1 minute pause, we'll resume with the reply speakers. First coming to us from the opposition, then to conclude the debate, the proposition reply speaker. Teams, your 1 minute pause begins now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that bell signals the end of your pause. We will resume now with the presentation from the third opposition speaker. That's the opposition reply. Let's make that speaker welcome.
Honorable judges, worthy opponents, and esteemed audience, good day. The opposition came to this debate armed not just with emotion, but with evidence and a plan. We came not to dismiss education, but to defend Jamaica's right to be free from the clutches of crime. The proposition would have us believe that education is the most effective way to reduce crime. But we challenge that claim head on. Why? Because crime has a cost, but it also has a payday. Education asks the morally challenged to hold themselves accountable and not seek that payday. National security ensures that if they go after that payday, they will pay the cost. Mr. Speaker, the facts are undeniable. 65% of Jamaicans say that the root cause of violent crime is corruption, not illiteracy. Violent crimes such as murder are compounded by external drivers beyond our borders, and education spending has been proven to have no impact on such crimes. And despite civic education campaigns that happen now, the Office of the DDP held that less than 6% of local rape cases result in conviction. Now contrast that with what we brought to the table. In June 2025, Jamaican authorities made their largest single armed seizure, not because of free hard courses, but because of a $231 million investment in scanners, drones, and port surveillance. This investment protected the right to life, property, and personal security for many Jamaicans. Mr. Speaker, instances like this make it clear when national security investment increases, crime decreases, a decrease that will go well beyond the 21.4 reduction currently experienced, and Operation Safe Haven will lead that decrease. The proposition says educate more people and crime will drop. But more books won't manage our crime crisis. What we need is more infrastructure, more personnel, and better incentives for those personnel. Jamaica is short over 4,000 police officers, and we continue to lose many more due to better salaries abroad. Education cannot fix that on its own, but investment will ensure the policeman get a little something, so he don't have to stop the man down there so for a little something. And that's what the opposition offers, a clear plan to strengthen the human and material capacity of our national security forces. Mr. Speaker, we're about to get a bit uncomfortable, because in a country where 1 in every 3 women are reported victims of sexual violence, education may teach the victim how to avoid danger, but it does not stop the predator. It does not stop the rapist. They tell us, be careful, walk in groups. If captured, comply to survive. That is not deterrence. That's survival training. Mr. Speaker, real deterrence comes when such deviant behavior is met with strong enforcement that leads to certain justice. Now let's talk about something the proposition has ignored, and that is Jamaica's cultural reality. A reality where links run the thing and violence is often excused. We have over 25,000 churches, the most per square mile globally, yet crime thrives. Even the educated and religious commit crime. Mr. Speaker, it's not the poor bridging light or buying licenses, and the financial crimes plaguing our institutions were not committed by dropouts, but by educated bank managers and executives. This is not a failure of curriculum. This is a failure of accountability and enforcement. And only a strong security framework combined with community engagement can adequately address such a complex crime reality. Mr. Speaker, I stop here to make one point clear. National security currently does not only police our streets, it involves community engagement. It rehabilitates those who are outside of the education system, because you cannot stop a criminal murderer by forcing him to go back to school. Mr. Speaker, when the streets get hot, the youth them can't go to school. And according to UNICEF, such disruptive instances directly lower Jamaica's literacy and numeracy scores. Operation Safe Haven, however, seeks not just to secure our schools, but ensure the overall safety of our teachers and students. So as I conclude, I have one last question for the proposition. How much more? How much more guns, murders, rapes, bank scams? How much more must Jamaica bear before you accept the truth? That only a substantial prioritizing of investment in our comprehensive national security framework can Jamaica effectively and swiftly reduce crime. Let us not be deaf to the cries of our people, but heed to the words of our national prayer. Give us vision, lest we perish. National security is that vision, a vision that saves lives and preserves order. The opposition rests.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech. We now conclude the debate with the final presentation, this one coming to us from the proposition side, the third speaker on side proposition. Let's make that speaker welcome.
Mr. Speaker, adjudicators, opponents, good afternoon. Now, Mr. Speaker, the opposition's model will not reduce crime. Their model will merely escape into nearby bushes. In addition, Mr. Speaker, more infrastructure does not equal crime reduction. Now, this debate hinges on one question: what is the most effective way to reduce crime in Jamaica in a lasting and transformative way? We do not argue that security is irrelevant. We say it is overfed, overfunded, and underperforming. And for Jamaica to truly break the cycle of violence, we must substantially prioritize education. The opposition wants us to remain reactive, but we are proposing proactiveness. No, the opposition will have you believe that education is slow and that security works. No. But Mr. Speaker, you don't judge a treatment by its temporary effects. You judge it by whether the disease returns. And in Jamaica's case, it always does. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner of Police in his press release reframing crime reduction acknowledged that while recent strategic initiatives have reduced crime, true lasting reduction depends on addressing poverty, lack of education, and unemployment. The root cause of crime, Mr. Speaker, is not corruption. Investment in Jamaica is not about more books. Education stops the rapist. Now, we did not get here overnight, Mr. Speaker, and crime will not be cured overnight. The opposition suggests that we're idealistic and that criminals don't wait on syllabi. But where has short-termism taken us? We have been increasing security budgets for decades. MOCA, SOEs, facial recognition system, foreign funding, but yet Jamaica still ranks among the top 5 countries globally for homicide rates. Now, if this approach worked, we would not be here debating this MOOT. Now, the opposition say that we want to gut the Ministry of National Security and hand it to the Ministry of Education, but that is a mischaracterization. Our model calls for a substantial shift in emphasis and resources, not a total eclipse. We say, let us reallocate meaningfully, fund early childhood interventions, strengthen guidance counseling, expand access to quality high school, train teachers, reinvest in at-risk communities through schools, not just police posts. Now, the opposition has alluded to the fact that education already gets the lion's share of the budget. True, but this is not the full picture. In 2023-2024, over 142 billion was allocated to education, and analysis of the numbers shows that allocation covered meals, path support, bus fares, textbooks, salaries, and university subventions. These are basic needs which maintain the system. They do not transform it. If we're serious about using education to reduce crime, we must go beyond the basics. Substantial prioritization means bold investment in early childhood, vocational training, inner-city infrastructure, and teacher development. Mr. Speaker, we already receive substantial international security support. For example, UK grants of over US 11 million, EU and equipment donations, US military aid in tens of millions, 290 million Jamaican dollars in bilateral grants. In 2017, the IDB approved a US $20 million loan to improve Jamaica's constabulary forces' ability to investigate and convict murders. This external funding lessens the need to disproportionately prioritize national security. Now, let me remind you of why the proposition's world is more ideal. Our first speaker showed that Jamaica's crime problem is not merely a matter of enforcement failure, but a social development crisis. He demonstrated that education prevents crime at its root. Our second speaker explained exactly how education can reduce crime in a strategic and scalable way. She even provided financing strategies. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica Observer reported that the government reduced its national security allocation in the 2024-2025 fiscal year, moving from 50.61 billion to 47.39 billion. Yet, despite this reduction, Jamaica recorded the lowest monthly homicide rate in 25 years, with 48 murders. Now, what does this tell us? That more investment in national security does not always equal more safety, but that strategic preventative investments in education do. Mr. Speaker, investment in education has long-term positive effects in every single sector, including the national security. We cannot say the same about prioritizing national security. No, we offer a path that builds long-term safety. The proposition rests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Third proposition speaker representing the Judiciary of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go to deliberate as the judges in this match, we are now going to turn over to Aniki Clark, who will really take us to that point of pause.
Thank you so much, Jermaine. Let's clap the teams once more. Points and counterpoints, proposals and counter-proposals, solid ideas that we definitely can take forward. For those of you online, just to remind you, we had the Ministry of Tourism and the Judiciary of Jamaica, and they debated the MOOT, be it resolved that the Government of Jamaica should substantially prioritize investment in education over national security in an effort to reduce crime. What do you think? We want to hear your views. Comment on our YouTube, Facebook, and let us know. We want to keep the conversation going. As Jermaine hinted, the judges will now deliberate. And when they return, we will hear who will join, which team will join the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Mining to battle it out to be crowned public sector debating competition champions for 2025. You've been an amazing audience. We'll be right back. Well done, team.
In this competition, the public sector debate competition, we grapple with the big and existential questions of our time. One such question that we just saw two teams engaged in a battle about has to do with where do we place the greater priority, national security or education? Of course, contesting the debate was a team from the Judiciary of Jamaica, Team Proposition, and opposing them, the Ministry of Tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, the team that advocated for education being prioritized situated their defense and their justification for that on the basis that, according to them, education provides the most long-standing, dependable, long-lasting resolution to crime. They say to us that they would want a system where there is greater capacity within the education system and a reformation of the curriculum to treat with the moral decay of the society, to make people more resilient and resistant to the temptation and the proclivity towards crime and violence. Now, as the debate went on, there's a lot of contestation and a lot of evidence being thrown about as to whether or not either world, the world where prioritization is had in education versus the world where the prioritization is in national security, which world leads to the best outcomes in terms of resolving crime? And of course, the evidence was brought on both sides that the other side's world does not lead to greater solvency to the issue. We contend that on the question as to whether where the evidence leads in terms of the research evidence, it was almost symmetrical, meaning it was a wash. It was equal on both sides. Yes? Where the analysis was relied on is in terms of the explanation by either team for their side. So what do we get in terms of the explanation? We get explanation, for example, from opposition that says in the status quo right now, we're seeing significant reductions in crime, in violent crime, and that reduction is stemming from the greater technological and training capacity even within the police force. Team Proposition does something quite innovative. They say education for them is outside of the traditional school classroom setting. Education, which is what they want to advocate for and are advancing, is education even within the police force. They point to the National Police College of Jamaica as being an institution that has led to a major part of the transformation of the police force, and they say that also needs to be improved upon and beefed up. Now, at that point, in as much as the education landscape is expanded in the world of Team Proposition, we felt like opposition lost out an opportunity to more frontally engage with that kind of characterization. Is that what the motion is about, the MOOT is about, yes? And so in as much as that wasn't engaged with in a frontal, direct way, we're led to believe that education, for the purpose of this debate, is within all the facets that proposition contends it must exist. Now, in terms of the status quo description, crime is high. Both teams seem to concede that. It's within this particular environment that we're now left to wonder, what do we do now? Team Opposition says we have to cauterize the crime. We have to stop the bloodletting so as to create an environment conducive to education. To do it the other way around, according to Team Opposition, is to basically throw away your money, to waste it. Because, for example, the instance they pointed to, you may have a good school system, but that school system cannot be accessed readily and appropriately by young people, students, because there's violence pervasive within the community. There seems to be a concession in this debate by both sides that education is hugely beneficial as a means of resolving crime. The question and the turning point for this debate is, at what point do we prioritize education? In as much as the debate is being had now, and were this a parliament where a bill is to be passed, the actions that would flow immediately after the passage of the bill, I mean, the debate has just been had. It's now time for us to vote. Yes? Then the ramifications, the context now would still exist past the passage of the bill. The implementation time is the here and now. So with that in mind, we have to then question ourselves, is now the appropriate time? The evidence, a major question that was asked in the debate was whether there are any models, any examples. I think it was asked in the second segment of the cross-examination. Any examples of societies that have invested, prioritized investments in education that have led to a significant reduction in violent crimes? And the truthful response we contend was given, no. In the absence of concrete evidence, and of course we got some attempt at evidence talking about Singapore and so forth, but given the paucity of the evidence, question then is, do we then have anything to deliver the debate in terms of winning the debate on the education front because of the analysis of the argumentation? And we felt like Team Proposition does a tremendously good job at articulating that education, separate and apart from the environment, is a hugely appropriate tool to resolve the crime issue. Another point of contestation near the end of the debate that we felt was very, very important is a question as to whether or not education merely teaches one to avoid violence, or does education treat with the violence producers? And the opposition says education merely teaches you how to run, how to save your life, how to prevent yourself from becoming the victims of certain crimes, which seems to us to mean that education's impact is to the victims of crime, or the would-be victims of crime. How does education now treat with the potential perpetrators of crime? And we think that the majority of the case from Team Proposition was that it does treat with and attend the proclivity of persons to commit crimes, as well as persons to become themselves victims of crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can appreciate, it was a tough decision on our part. We weighed multiple lines of argumentation. In the final analysis, ladies and gentlemen, the figures that result are as follows: 281 points, as opposed to 289 points. The winner of this match, the second semi-finals in the public sector debate competition for 2025, comes to us from Team Opposition, Ministry of Tourism. And so congratulations to the Ministry of Tourism for advancing to the grand finals to meet up with the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining. And of course, very well done to the team, the Judiciary of Jamaica. Very, very well done. Ladies and gentlemen, the best debater in this match was a bit ahead by a little bit of a margin, right, Roshana? Yes, unlike the previous match, yes? Last match, the 1 point separated the commendable debater and the best debater. This time, it's a 2-point margin, so it's a little bit ahead, not substantially though. At this time, I want to call on the Executive Director for the Public Sector, the Transformation Implementation Unit. Maybe we need an executive director for the competition, who knows? But yes, Ms. Maria Thompson Walters, the executive director for TIU, to step forward to present the token, a rather large and beautiful token, I'm told, to the winning, the best debater. That debater comes to us from the winning team, and it is, ladies and gentlemen, the third speaker, the reply speaker. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a day very well spent. Please join us. And we don't have to appeal and beg you because we know you will. Join us for the grand finals in about 2 weeks from now, where we will see the top 2 teams in the competition face off to be crowned ultimately champions of this year's competition. But of course, before that, on the very same day, we'll have the third place playoff. Again, the third place playoff will feature the 2 second place teams from the semifinals round. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. All the best.